All right, so today we're diving into the world of Chris Langan, the guy dubbed the smartest man in the world. And let me tell you, his interview, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? What I find fascinating about Langan is, he doesn't fit that typical genius stereotype, you know what I mean?
Right, like the absent-minded professor type.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, his IQ scores are off the charts, somewhere between 195 and 210, but it's more than that. He's got this, relentless drive for knowledge, trying to build a theory that explains, well, everything.
That's a pretty big goal. You'd think with an IQ like that, he'd be, I don't know, leading some huge research team at Harvard or running Google or something. But instead, he's living on a farm in Missouri.
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher,
Yeah.
right? I mean, Lingen's story really throws a wrench in our ideas about intelligence and success. He chose knowledge over money, which he admits, wasn't always easy.
I bet.
He talks about feeling like he didn't quite fit in academia and how people were skeptical of his ideas.
Oh, I can imagine.
There's even this story about a calculus professor who basically told him flat out, some people just aren't meant to be mathematicians.
Oh, wow. Imagine hearing that, especially from your professor and your Chris Langan. It makes you wonder how many other brilliant people are out there, but they're just not fitting into the system.
It's a good point. But Langan, he didn't let that stop him.
He kept going.
It's really interesting how all the different jobs he had, like ranch hand, factory worker, even a bouncer, it seems like all that really shaped how he sees the world.
He actually talks about those jobs as valuable lessons, right?
He does. He saw firsthand, the struggles of everyday people and how the system can sometimes it feels like it favors connections and wealth over actual talent. But he didn't let that make him cynical. Instead, he used those experiences to develop his own grand theory, the Cognitive-Theoretic Model of the universe.
Ah, yes, the CTMU. Ambitious, to say the least. So for me and for our listener, break the theory down a bit. He's trying to unify logic, language, physics, even math, all into one framework, right? Like he's searching for a universal code, the code of reality.
And at the core of it, his idea is surprisingly simple, but it's also incredibly profound. He says, reality has only one structure.
Okay, I can see how that could have some pretty mind-blowing implications.
For sure.
But
Think of it this way, we usually think of the laws of physics as these rules that govern the universe. But Langan, he suggests that they're not just random rules, they're reflecting something way deeper, something about the very nature of existence itself.
so he's not just describing how things work, he's searching for the why behind it all. That's a whole different level of thinking. And that leads him to some pretty bold conclusions like the existence of God, right?
Right. For Langan, God isn't just about faith. It's like a logical necessity that comes from the very structure of reality itself. This isn't your typical religious argument. He connects this idea of the identity of reality with that classic phrase, I am that I am. He attributes things like omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, all to this ultimate reality.
So it's not just that God exists, but God is, in a sense, reality itself. That's got to raise questions about how we even perceive the universe and God's role in it.
Absolutely. He tackles this question of where God fits in the universe by separating pantheism, where God is the universe, from panentheism, where God is both within and beyond the universe. He uses this analogy of a computer simulation to illustrate it. Imagine the universe we see as the display of that simulation. For Langan, God is both the display and the processing power behind it, existing somewhere beyond our current understanding.
Wow, okay, that's a powerful image. So God is like the programmer, the code, and the computer all rolled into one. I mean, it's a lot to grasp, but it definitely gets you thinking about consciousness in a whole new way. Is that where his concept of identity operators comes in?
Exactly. This is where Langan takes the idea of consciousness way beyond what we normally think about. He's saying it's not just limited to humans or even living things. He proposes that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe itself. He introduces these identity operators, which are like the building blocks of reality.
Hold on, I'm trying to picture this. Is he saying that everything, even inanimate objects like this table, they possess some level of consciousness?
In a way, yeah. He describes it as a more generic kind of consciousness, different from the self-aware consciousness that we humans experience. Think of it like this. Remember learning in school that everything is made of atoms? Well, Langan takes that a step further. He says those tiny building blocks, these identity operators, they're not just inert matter. They each have a kind of of basic awareness. It's like the universe is built from tiny aware units.
So there's a fundamental consciousness woven into the fabric of existence itself. It's mind-boggling to think about what that could mean. But if everything has some level of consciousness, then where do we fit in? How do we as humans fit into this grand scheme of a conscious universe?
That's where things get really interesting, and that's what we'll dive into next.
All right, sounds like we've got a lot more to unpack. Stick with us, folks. We'll be right back to explore more of Chris Langan's mind-blowing ideas and what they might mean for how we understand our own lives and the universe around us. So we've established that Langan has, well, some pretty wild ideas about consciousness in the universe, that's for sure. But where does free will fit into all of this? If there's this fundamental consciousness everywhere, even in like inanimate objects, does that even leave room for our own choices?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Yeah. And Langan tackles it head on. He doesn't buy the typical view that free will is just us making choices within a system that's already decided. He brings in these really interesting concepts, advanced causation and retrocausation.
You mentioned those before the break, and I got to admit, I'm still wrapping my head around them. Advanced causation. Okay, that makes sense. Past influences the future, like cause and effect, the way we normally think about time. But retrocausation, where the future can actually influence the past, that's where things get a little fuzzy for me. Can you break it down for me and for our listener, like in a way that makes sense?
Sure. It definitely stretches how we think about time and reality itself. Imagine you're watching a movie, right? You see events unfold beginning to end. That's how we usually experience time, just a straight line. But Langan is suggesting that maybe reality is more like watching a movie where the ending can actually change the beginning.
So it's not just a one-way street. Past and future are like intertwined, influencing each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that has huge implications for free will. It means reality isn't just playing out a script that's already written. It's constantly being created, with both the past and the future playing a part in shaping what's happening right now.
Whoa, okay. That's a lot to process. So it's like our choices aren't just reactions to what's already happened, but they can actually in some way shape what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-bending, but also incredibly exciting to think about. Speaking of the future, what about the afterlife? Does Langan believe in what happens after we die?
He does, but it's not the simple heaven or hell thing we usually hear about. He believes we go on after death, but where we end up, it depends on who we are and our relationship with what he calls the identity of reality, which is essentially God.
So it's not about being good or bad in the traditional sense, but more about how aligned we are with this ultimate reality, this fundamental consciousness we've been talking about.
Exactly. It's about the choices we make in life, whether we embrace or reject that connection to the greater whole. Langan really emphasizes the personal aspect of this. He says that God turns away from those who reject him, which leads to a self-created hell. It's a very, very interesting take on the traditional idea of damnation.
That brings up the question of evil then. If God is the source of this ultimate reality, how does evil even fit in? Does he have thoughts on that?
He does, and he gets into some deep theological stuff here. He separates Satan, that anti-God figure, from religious texts, from Lucifer, the fallen angel. He sees Satan as like pure negation, something that can actually exist on its own, like trying to define darkness without light. It's the absence of something, not a thing itself.
Okay, that makes sense. So if Satan is more of a symbolic idea, then what about Lucifer? Where does he fit in?
Langan sees Lucifer as a much more complex figure, someone walking that line between good and evil. He even suggests that Lucifer plays a role in showing us reality, bringing us knowledge and awareness, even if that knowledge can be used for bad things.
It's like he's saying that even the things we see as negative, as evil, they can have a purpose in the grand scheme of things. They teach us, challenge us, and ultimately help us grow. It's a very different way of looking at things, isn't it?
It is. And Langan goes on to say that evil often gains power, gains coherence through us, through human beings, especially in power structures. He seems to be saying that while evil itself is ultimately self-defeating, it can be a very strong force, especially when it's organized, driven by those who want to control and manipulate others.
That takes us to his views on politics and globalism, which, if you read anything about Langan, can be, well, a bit controversial. He's very critical of what he sees as this system that's erasing national sovereignty and individual freedom.
He's very outspoken about his concerns about how a powerful elite, as he sees it, are manipulating global systems for their own benefit. He's particularly critical of things like the World Economic Forum and their influence on world events.
And he's definitely not shy about his skepticism of politicians in general. Like I remember reading somewhere he even compared most politicians to one step removed from prostitutes. That's quite a statement.
It is. And while that might sound like just a provocation, what's important is that Langan, he backs it up. He connects the dots between events and ideologies, showing how this globalist agenda, in his view, is undermining national identity and individual liberties.
He also talks about conspiracy, not like crazy theories, but as a basic part of how the world works.
Yeah.
He points out that everything from intelligence agencies and trade secrets to even how companies are formed, it all involves groups of people working together in secret, often to get an advantage over others. It's a pretty realistic observation when you think about it.
Right. He's not saying every conspiracy theory is true, but he's encouraging people to look deeper, to consider how hidden agendas might be shaping events. And he applies this to what's happening in the world today, too, expressing concern about things like the Great Reset and what's behind it.
He's also skeptical about the COVID vaccines and the mainstream narrative around them. It's clear he's not afraid to question authority, to challenge, what everyone else seems to accept.
He even questions whether figures like Donald Trump, despite all their populist talk, were really aware of what was going on, or if they were being, manipulated by those around them.
It's a pretty cynical view of the political scene, but it's also, it makes you think. It makes you question who's really in control and how much power does any one person, even a world leader, really have against these larger systems. But even with all his criticism, Langan doesn't say we should just detach from the world completely. He actually stresses the importance of local activism, encouraging people to get involved in their communities, to push back against policies that are eroding our individual freedoms.
He sees that American spirit of self-reliance, of independence, as key to resisting what he sees as the encroachment of this globalist system. It's about taking responsibility, being informed, and actively participating in shaping the world around you.
That's a message that resonates, even if you don't agree with everything he says. It's about being engaged, being informed, not just passively accepting what's being presented to you. So we've covered a lot of ground here: consciousness, free will, the afterlife, even politics and conspiracy theories. But there's one more thing I got to ask about: aliens. Langan's views on the universe and reality are so expansive. I can't help but wonder if extraterrestrial life fits into his theories.
It's a great question. And Langan doesn't rule out the possibility of aliens at all. He talks about the widespread UFO reports and how even intelligence agencies seem to believe in them. He acknowledges that there's something going on there, something that needs more investigation.
It's almost like he's saying that given everything we've been talking about the nature of reality, the idea of aliens, it shouldn't be just dismissed as crazy. It actually fits with his idea about the mental aspect of reality, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. He argues that if reality isn't just about the physical stuff, but also has this mental component, then things that we can't explain with our current understanding of physics, they become more plausible. It's a very, very open-minded approach, even when dealing with things that people are often skeptical about.
He even shares his own UFO encounter from when he was working in the Montana wilderness. I think he described seeing this huge metallic elliptical object moving in ways that no normal aircraft could.
It's amazing to think that even someone with his intelligence can be faced with mysteries that challenge everything they thought they knew.
It shows that he's not closed off to new ideas, to new experiences, even when they challenge his current understanding. It's about constantly searching for knowledge, refining what we know, even if it means admitting that there are things we still don't fully get. And that leads to a really interesting question. If even someone like Chris Langan runs into things he can't explain, then what does that mean for the rest of us? Where do we go from here in our own search for knowledge and understanding? It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of what Langan has to offer, and I'm eager to dive into that last part of our exploration, which is all about his views on beauty, truth, and meaning.
Yeah, those are the big ones, aren't they? Let's jump right in and see what Langan has to say about those essential parts of the human experience.
We've really been on a wild ride through Langan's mind, haven't we? From the nature of reality to aliens. It's been a lot. But through all this talk of grand theories and complex ideas, I keep coming back to one basic question. What's it all for? Where does meaning fit into Langan's view of the universe?
That's something we all struggle with, right? And it's definitely something Langan explores deeply. He sees a profound connection between beauty, truth, and teleology. That's the idea that things have an inherent purpose. He calls this connection the telek economy.
So it's not just about survival of the fittest or random chance. There's a deeper purpose woven into existence itself.
That's Langan's view. He argues that true beauty, it reflects this inherent order and purpose of reality. He contrasts this with how we tend to see beauty today as subjective, just a matter of personal taste. For Langan, there's a deeper truth in beauty, something that resonates with us on a fundamental level.
It makes you think about those times when you're just awestruck by something beautiful, whether it's nature or a great piece of art. There's this feeling of connection, like you're seeing something profound and meaningful that goes way beyond just your own personal preference.
Exactly. And this telek economy, it takes that concept beyond the material world. It includes our search for meaning and purpose, our desire to connect with something bigger than ourselves. For Langan, this isn't just a human thing. It's built into reality itself.
But our search for meaning is like a reflection of the universe's own purposefulness.
Yeah.
It's not just us trying to find our place, but the universe drawing us toward a greater understanding of ourselves and our role in all of this. It's a beautiful idea.
It is, and it leads us to Langan's advice for navigating this complex world. He suggests that the ultimate path is about building a personal relationship with God and striving for a life that's aligned with truth and meaning rather than just chasing, wealth and power.
It's a powerful message, especially coming from someone who's spent his life trying to understand the universe on such a grand scale. It suggests that our intellectual pursuits, while important, shouldn't be separate from how we live our lives. It's about bringing knowledge and wisdom into our everyday choices, making decisions that reflect our understanding of ourselves and our place in the cosmos.
He emphasizes that we are, as he puts it, images of God, capable of participating in the creation of reality. It's a call to action, to consciously shape the world around us in a way that aligns with our understanding of truth and beauty.
It's a reminder that we're not just watching the universe happen, we're part of it. Our choices matter, our actions have consequences, and we have the potential to contribute to something much bigger than ourselves. There's a lot to take in, but I think that's the point of these deep dives, isn't it?
Oh.
To push us, to challenge our thinking, to open our minds to new possibilities.
For sure. And in this deep dive, you've been exposed to a mind that sees the world as this deeply interconnected system, where consciousness is fundamental, reality is constantly being created, and the pursuit of truth and meaning is essential. Chris Langan's perspective is, well, it's definitely unique, it's challenging, and sometimes it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But it also gives us a new way to look at the world, encouraging us to think critically, to question what we think we know, and to seek a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we live in.
I think Langan would agree that the journey of discovery never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to explore, more to question. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this sense of wonder and a renewed curiosity about the mysteries that are still out there. So to our listener, I leave you with this. What stuck with you from Langan's ideas? What sparked your interest? What questions will you take with you as you continue your own exploration of the world?
Keep searching, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time, keep those minds open and stay curious.